Power Empowerment Through Connection. And today we have the amazing Kelly Jones, who is going to bring you all kinds of interesting information on how equine assisted learning and equine assisted therapy are different and how we can help serve each other as practitioners in the field without being competitive. She's also an author. She has an amazing coffee table book called Unbridled Connections, where she's taken her own pictures and has inspirational quotes to be able to inspire you. See, there it is. Look at that beautiful book. And she will also be talking about equine welfare, which is incredibly important, and how we support our equines in the work that we do in equine assisted learning and equine assisted psychotherapy, or equine facilitated mental health, as it's also known. We have so many different acronyms in our field. It's kind of funny to me. And then my friend Amalia, hi, Elysia Buss, how are you? I'm doing great. It's nice to see you here, my friend. We have so much to talk about. Kelly is in Texas. Is it Leander? Am I saying that right?
Yes. Yeah,
Leander,
that's right. It's north of Austin.
North of Austin, which is a great musical city. She's at Southwind Equestrian Center, which is her equestrian center, right, Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
2015. It's pretty awesome. And she also does retreats there, though they have been safely providing services throughout COVID.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Emmanuel says, nice to hear. Interesting. I'm glad you find it interesting. We have lots of cool things to offer here. Kelly, so tell us a little bit more about what you are doing. Like, who are you serving at your equestrian center in Southwind?
Primarily in our equine assisted mental health services, we provide help for adults, teenagers, and children. So we have a licensed social worker who's also a licensed art therapist, and she is primarily seeing adults and actually men. So she specializes in veterans and first responders. I have a licensed professional counselor here who sees adults and children and teenagers, and her name is Hannah, and she's wonderful. And I have a child psychologist here named Dr. Merrill, and she sees children.
That's excellent. And how young are the children that come to see you? Like, what's the youngest kiddo?
The youngest kiddo we have right now is 6 years old.
Right on.
So,
and so
yeah.
Are they doing primarily groundwork? Do they also ride? How are things framed there?
Well, we use the natural lifemanship modality here. And so if one of our clients, no matter the age, is too dysregulated really to safely interact with a horse, then we will do some work outside. We will walk on trails. We have a labyrinth here. And then once we're able to get our clients regulated and grounded and more present, even the little ones, then we'll even do some riding specifically to get passive regulation. The horse is connected to the handler, not to the rider, so the horse is safe. And the therapist works from the ground with the rider to just get them into their bodies and get them balanced, work on proprioceptive systems. And then once we're able to get that kid or the adult really comfortable here, then we'll start introducing them to the horses and let them choose a partner to work with on the ground primarily. If we need to go back to some riding, it's always with the target of that passive regulation. It is, and we don't let them ride independently. We don't jump. We don't do anything like that. It is always a horse being led by a trained handler and the client being worked with a therapist.
Fantastic. So Emmanuel asked equine assisted therapy. So he's wondering exactly what that is. Can you talk to him, talk to all of us a little bit more about what equine assisted therapy is?
I would love to. So in order for a service to be labeled therapy, it has to be a service provided to humans for mental health purposes, or physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy. And in order for the mental health services, occupational, physical, or speech therapy, there has to be a licensed therapist there providing those services. So that is just like you'd go into an office in the city. You want to see their license on the wall, that they're accredited, and they have to answer to someone and have ethics that they have to answer to, things like that. And so the difference between that and equine assisted learning can also be provided by a licensed therapist, but the goals are different. So the goals for an equine assisted therapy session are mental health challenges that sometimes arise out of what happens in our lives, patterns that develop that cause our relationships to be disrupted, coping mechanisms for past trauma, just a sense of being stuck, a sense of damaging relationships, our quality of life, depression, anxiety. So those are things that we would focus on in a therapy session. We would actually go backwards. We would look at some of the patterns that have evolved over our clients' lives, help them recognize those patterns, and then help them create new patterns. Whereas an equine assisted learning session with a professional counselor or with a coach or an equine professional would be today, how are you feeling and how can I help? And then I or other professionals help our clients become grounded, understand what it means to be present, so that when they get triggered by something, that they can recognize that that's happening and change that pattern. But we don't go backwards. We're not licensed to go back into histories and traumas and reliving. In none of that EMDR, all of that is for a licensed therapist. But equine assisted learning is powerful. It's beautiful. It can be done with couples, groups, families. We work with couples, individuals, and families here. We even do some corporate work with teams. And so the horses partner with us to help teach those skills, right? The skill of being present, of learning that we must exercise our right brain, that we have to understand that if we're not connected to ourselves, then we can't connect with others. And then we just don't understand, oops, I just hurt that person's feelings. I should probably go and apologize. Right. Or even kids asking for help, things like that. So it's both are truly life-changing, but it's really important to know the difference. So if you're looking for help with PTSD, that you need to go to a licensed therapist, because a licensed therapist can help you with that trauma, with the traumatic event, whereas the equine professional is not going to be able to go backwards and help process through that event that happened.
Right. They would just help you in the moment with emotional regulation, with being present, which can also help with the reactive portion of PTSD, but we're not going down the road with you and trying to go back to the initial incident and process how that trauma. So it's really important to understand the difference of scope of practice between a life coach, which falls into the equine assisted learning aspect of things, and a mental health practitioner, which obviously falls on the other side of that fence, and having really good boundaries. And for us as practitioners, of course, understanding transference and making sure that we're in a good place, we're able to be emotionally grounded and neutral with our clients, regardless of whether or not we're in the equine assisted learning or mental health field.
Absolutely. There's nothing in my mind more important than that, because if we're working, especially with horses, we have to be there with them in the moment to keep the horses safe. So right. We can't everyone be dysregulated in a session. It's really important that we understand how our own work must happen in order for us. And now we can't be perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect in this perfectly regulated place 100% of the time.
Nope.
We have to recognize it and actually intentionally, do something about it prior to the arrival of our clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, you brought up the equine welfare and how that folds into that aspect of things, and honoring when horses are in a place where they want to engage with the clients, and making sure we have herds large enough to be able to allow that to happen, right?
Yes, ma'am. It is really important that we understand that we cannot just have 2 horses and serve 20 clients. The thing about understanding horses is understanding that they will happily do that for you. They will become compliant. They will go into freeze mode, but that doesn't give our clients, the human clients, what they're looking for is that sense of connection and engagement, because our horses are burned out. They
right.
don't they can't take it. And truly, horses are incredibly sensitive. They're social animals. They're hardwired to be in healthy relationships. And when we assume that they can do hour after hour of sessions with dysregulated people, that we are doing our horses a favor, that's false. Our horses need breaks. They need to be out rolling and running and playing with their friends.
Being horses.
They need to be horses. And so in order for us to provide services, so if we're going to say, okay, clients are our priority, then in order for the client services to be the priority, we have to have horses that are present, that are safe, that are not in their fight, flight, freeze, appease brain, that they're in their parasympathetic brain. They're relaxed. Only when they're relaxed and safe can they engage with us safely. And so it's hugely important to understand horses and to understand horse behavior and what horses need so that we can provide the services that we do to the humans.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought all of that up. I mean, compassion fatigue is something that's come up more in the news lately with COVID and everything that's going on, but the horses get those same sort of symptoms of like compassion fatigue when they're around all that dysregulated energy, and they're needing to like ground their energy, and we are within that energetic sphere of theirs with our dysregulated energy, and so it can be draining, I imagine, for them.
They are. They and if you are tuned into them, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
If you understand that horse is checked out and not sleeping, it's hugely important. It's hugely important to point that out to your client too, because they need to understand that horses do the same thing that we do. Humans spend a whole lot of time in the frozen, checked out space, and we just don't even recognize that that's what's happening. And the more isolated we get, the more checked out we get, because our nervous systems are just starving to death for authentic connection.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then you and I spoke about business owners and how horse people are very heart-centered. They go into it oftentimes with a lot of heart, but not necessarily a lot of business sense. And there's no shame in that, but it just means that there's more that people need to learn, and how sometimes the stress of the owner, of the facilitator of a space, can then also spill out into their engagements with their horses.
That is true.
Yeah,
too many times. I think that the research has shown that the average lifespan of a therapy program is 3 years. And so in order for us to understand that relationship is the basis of what we do, and in order for our relationship with our horses and with our clients to remain predictable and to remain safe, we have to take on the business aspect. The business aspect is the reality. The reality is we have to buy high quality hay. We have to have veterinary care. We have to have farriers. We have to have their teeth floated. We have to have body work done. We have to provide them, high quality grain. If they have supplement needs, fly predators for flies, all of the things that go in, insurance. And we have to have a reality check. It costs a lot of money to do this. And if we are unable to get into it in a healthy way for our horses, and we start to feel desperate, and we start to feel like we can't pay the bills, and oh my God, my horse is colicking and I can't afford to call the vet, and our horses pick up on the anxiety too. And so we need to learn, the heart piece is beautiful, and that's what drives us and keeps it going, because it's hard, but we also have to ask for help in the business piece. If that's a place that we're not comfortable in, find some people to help. Hire an accountant, hire a bookkeeper, have a budget, ask
business
for
coach.
Yeah, business coach. Go to your small business administration, put together a business plan. There's so many resources out there to get help.
But like oftentimes the Chamber of Commerce, oftentimes in your even small cities, will oftentimes have free services to help small business owners and with all sorts of different things, marketing, accounting, taxes. And so they're a really great resource that I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of. And so that's a great place to go. Business coaches, life coaches oftentimes have free 20-minute discovery calls. And so you can explore the connections with and who you connect with, right? Because people process information differently. We have different attachment styles and multiple intelligences so that we can, perhaps you're a more kinesthetic learner, and if you match up with somebody that's more auditory or mathematical based, then you might agree, but you might argue at the same time, because like you agree on a concept, but how you articulate it is so different that you're just sitting there like arguing with each other. No, it's this way, you know. And so that's why it's important to honor who you engage with. And just because a coach or a therapist was amazing for one person over here doesn't mean necessarily that they'll be a great person for you. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with them. It just means that you're not the right match. And that's why I think it's so important for all of us to have that abundance mindset and look at the biggest picture. And when somebody comes to you and you're just like, I could serve you, but I wouldn't serve you as well as this person over here that really specializes in this and has a personality that's going to match yours. So I'm going to send you to this person over there. And that's why referrals are such a beautiful thing. And you and I talked about the importance of not being competitive within our field, because there are so many different models available within our field. And honoring that people, the different models meet people, I feel like in different stages of their evolution too. And just like honoring that like somebody might not be at that stage yet, and it doesn't make them a bad person. It's just like, if you talk to somebody and they're so set in their perspective in life, nothing you say to them is going to hit them in a way to operate with change. They're just going to create more drama, more pushback. You're going to probably get irritated. They're going to get irritated, and it's potentially going to create problems. And nobody wants that. And so that it's work on both sides, right? To be able to honor and understand when another person is not in a space to hear you, and just be like, well, I really want to tell you this, but if it's not actually going to accomplish anything, then just taking a deep breath and conserving your energy and understanding that you need to just wait for a different time or talk to somebody else about what it is that you need to speak on. And that's true anywhere. It's not just in the horse world. It's like just relationships, I feel like, in general, especially during these times of politics. I think it's important to like honor that. And then if you have somebody, like listen, like to really listen to them. And then that tends to create a bigger space for somebody to then listen to you in return, and be able to have that neutral dialogue of assimilating new information and potentially getting to make new choices. But if you just ridge up to somebody and just tell them immediately that they're wrong about everything, right, then you just cut your legs off at the knees and nothing's going to happen.
And that's everybody's personal journey too, because in the beginning, you're just like searching and searching and searching. How do I do this? And how do I do it right? And am I doing it wrong? And then as you get more comfortable and settle in, you'd know right away, you know, when someone that you're talking with, you're going to understand, or you're going to pick and choose what you like and what you don't like, and then have confidence that it's okay to do that, because everybody's different and everybody sees things and hears things differently. And I love that this goes back to horses too, right? So horses live in abundance in a natural world out in the wild. They walk 25 miles a day. They don't fight with each other about food. So we create the sense of, you know, scarcity in our domestic horse herds, which gives them that
hierarchy.
Yeah, the hierarchy that they don't have out in the wild. So how about we learn from them that we're creating this sense of scarcity with each other, instead of living in abundance with each other, recognizing that this is a huge country full of hurting people. And we all know in our own ways that the horses can change people's lives, and we must honor the space that we're giving each other and that the horses are giving us, and to step back and take a breath, and like we talked about earlier, getting closer to who we really are, recognizing who we really are. And when we get closer to our true selves, we start to see other people in a much more generous way, because we recognize everybody's doing the best that they can.
Absolutely. And it's, oh my goodness gracious, there's just so much to it. And exchange isn't always about a monetary exchange. You know, it's time, it's energy, there's so much more that we can give to each other without having to think about money. I mean, like, yes, we need money to pay our bills, but there's so much help that we all need. That's just time, and just honoring that sometimes we need more help than other times. And then we get to pay that forward. And what a beautiful experience that is when, you know, you do something for somebody and they're like, hey, can I pay you? And then you're like, no, I just pay it forward. Like how
Right.
good that feels inside of you, and knowing that like, then when sometime when you need to ask for help, then you'll feel better about getting to receive it, because you know you've already had that exchange with your community. And you know, which brings us to like our vulnerable times. Like Kelly, like you have some vulnerable times that you've been going through, that you want to share some of the obstacles that you've overcome to be able to live your dream and working at Southwinds.
Sure. I'll give a couple of examples for those of you who are struggling. I am a single mom. So I have a 15-acre horse ranch here that I've been here by myself. We actually bought the property in 1999, and I started Southwind in 2004 and got divorced in 2007. And so since then, I've been out here with the help of my friends and family, raising kids, running a barn, starting a therapy program. Took a huge leap of faith in 2013. I quit my day job with my benefits and my regular paycheck and all of that comfort that the golden handcuffs provide, and dove into, I know that this is where I need to be, and I know that this is going to work. And it has been tough, and it has been scary, and I have lived in that scarcity mindset where I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to buy groceries? And it's been okay. I'm still here in the year 2020. And so in 2013, when I took the leap, I went to work for another place, and I learned so much there. So I encourage everyone to go and be somewhere where they were doing this work. Be humble and have that humility to learn. Just soak in what you can. And so that was one of the things I had to overcome, was no money, no job, working as an intern at this other place, and then having the courage and just say, okay, this is it. I'm going to start this, doing something like that here. I happen to live in a place north of Austin that is covered with giant trees. It's just an anomaly. It doesn't happen here. There's juniper trees and cactus, but we have like 60-foot to 100-foot giant trees here. Wow. And it lends itself to this beauty, this peace. It's quiet. You can't hear any road noise. There's owls at night. See the stars. We heard the cranes flying over yesterday. It's just the deer wander around. You're just one of those places where you just stop. And we think that's one of the reasons why it really is powerful for our clients here, because the minute they step out of the door. So I have pretty much been doing this by myself for a long time. And then in 2018, I was working off-site at a resort. I had was rehabbing their horses and developing programming for them, and I got hurt. And it ruptured a disc in my back. And literally I was on my back for months. And then that company eliminated my position, and they denied my claim. So I had no medical care, no access to medical care. So then I'm scrounging, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And trying to find, and here comes my community, right? They came around me. They took my son to school. They went grocery shopping for me. They took care of my horses. They kept the therapy program going. It was beautiful to know that I wasn't alone. It felt to me like I was sitting out here in this storm, and was completely out in the elements. And all of a sudden I recognized there's umbrellas all around me, that people are, protecting me from the wind. And so this has been a 2-year journey now. And to be able to learn from this has been a huge gift for me, because I've always been the Tasmanian devil, whatever you want to call me. I could do anything, right? My mother always like, Kelly, you're 5'3". You can't do anything. I mean, you can't do everything, right? You can just do this much. I'm like, no, I can't. And I'm lifting everything and doing everything, right? Driving a tractor and backing up trailers and all the things that gave me an identity, right? Like that was my identity, was I was super tough. Yeah. Well, take away that, who am I? And I have had 2 years now to recognize that that isn't who I was, and that doesn't define me. What defines me is who I was created to be, and that person is still here. And I've learned so much in the stillness of being able to have to let my body heal. You know, I've had to let it heal. So in December, I had surgery and have been recovering ever since. And that's when I wrote my book. It gave me time to be outside because I was looking through all of my photographs of being outside. And so I guess my biggest takeaway for all of you guys who may be out there not knowing what to do, just keep going. I think one of the things we do in our work that's so important is we challenge our clients to take a step out of your comfort zone and stand there in that discomfort and see what happens, right? And we are strong enough. We are courageous enough. We can do it. Everything we need, we already have. So do that. Step and get uncomfortable. This is very uncomfortable for me to be out here in front of this video camera, but do the uncomfortable things and you'll be amazed.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Kelly.
Oh, you're welcome.
Speaking of stepping outside of your comfort zone, can you share a couple of stories about your clients and the first responders, the veterans, you know, some of the kiddos, and how working with the horses has helped them transcend some spaces?
Okay. I think probably the most amazing story for me recently has been a young lady that came to me with a traumatic brain injury that she had gotten 4 years ago. She was hit by a pickup truck in a crosswalk, and her head hit the hood of the truck and then the pavement. And she was in the hospital, and they kept her in the hospital just a few days and released her without any aftercare. And so she really has felt like she has been lost, like not getting the care she needed medically. And when she came to me, she struggled to walk with confidence. So her gait wasn't normal. She kind of walked, toe to heel instead of heel to toe. And she also had trouble recalling words and had that rhythm of speech that we have. She kind of stumbled and would have trouble, like I'm doing right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And so she started working with me, and I took it very, very slowly because she was very fragile physically. And we spent a whole lot of time just being outside. I would do very slow body scans with her, waking her body back up again, because it felt to me like she really needed to reconnect physically with her body. And she had tried so long to get her brain, she felt like working again, that she hadn't really recognized that but from here down, she wasn't feeling anything. And so she wanted to start a new relationship with a young man that she'd met, and she really felt the struggle about that too, like this emotional connection piece. How do I get that?
Yeah.
So we started working together with a horse about probably 3 weeks in. I asked her to just stand with me next to one of the horses that I really trust. And we underneath a giant oak tree. And she just stood there, and the first time she said she started to feel her body, sensations inside of her body, just little waking up sensations. So a couple more sessions like that, just in the presence of the horse. And then I kind of surprised her, and I had the horse, and then I stepped out of the area where the horse was, and she, was startled that I had left her. And I encouraged her, why don't you just stand there with this horse? And it was even more powerful for her to be there in that space with my mare. And then she started brushing her, and she recognized the texture of her coat. She recognized the wind in her face, all of those things to wake her up. And then my horse is a very nurturing horse, very amazing. And she just wrapped herself around this young woman. And a couple more sessions after that, I actually put her on top of the horse, just to sit on top of the horse. And it was incredible. It still gives me goosebumps. Her arms and legs started quivering. It's like they were coming back to life. And she's walking now. She's actually jogging.
Wow.
She jogged before her accident. And she has no interruptions in her cadence of her speech. So she still comes to me. She still gets encouragement. I have a swing here, so she swings, and we work with my horse, and we walk the labyrinth together, and we walk on our trails, and she is able to be in this new relationship with this young man. So I think that's a huge testament to the resilience of humans and the resilience of our brains. Anything can happen. We just have to trust not only in the horses, but nature. Being outside there's nothing else like it that we can do for our clients. Another powerful story was a couple that I worked with that they had a pattern in their arguments of her shutting down, him chasing her, her turning and blowing up at him and hurting his feelings, right? Because he was trying to finish, all of the men, all that. This particular man was always like, I just want to get it over with. I just want to finish our argument. I just want us to resolve this. And it was always the same. So they each worked with a horse individually, and each of the horses taught them what they needed to know. The man needed to understand that he needed to energetically connect with his wife, but not chase her around because it scared her. And she needed to understand that when she started to feel the pressure from him wanting to resolve this, that she would shut down, and that would make his trigger get bigger, right? Because he was afraid of abandonment. And so they had this beautiful realization with each other that they loved each other and they wanted to be married and have a happy marriage together. And these two just really kind of easy things, right? Just stop and take a breath and allow her to come back to you in a safe space where she feels safe. So those are two pretty powerful stories of humans healing as a result of horses showing them very authentically that they were safe and what safe looks and feels like.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel like we could just talk and talk and talk and talk. So one of the questions I like to ask people before we end our interviews is that who inspires you in the world?
Wow, who inspires me in the world?
Can be many people, can be one.
I'm going to have to say there's a lady named Cynthia Burgo who is a teacher at the Center for Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I have to say she inspires me to continue to learn because I think there's so much we don't see.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And Kelly, thank you so much for sharing everything with the audience and me today, and for all you do for your community, and and for your horses by being so conscious of keeping them safe in their engagements with their clients.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome. It was wonderful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, until next time, bye.